There comes a moment in every woman's life when she gets tired, tired of shrinking, tired of performing, tired of asking for the same respect she was born worthy of. And in that sacred, silent moment when no one else is watching, she hears the quiet voice within whisper something undeniable. You were never meant to beg for what you were born to embody. You see, we live in a world that teaches women to chase worth like it's a prize, to earn it, prove it, win it, fight for it. But here's the truth that no one tells you. Worth is not something you chase. It's something you remember. It doesn't fluctuate with the seasons of your life. It doesn't evaporate because of one bad relationship. It doesn't shrink because someone else couldn't see it. And yet most of us walk through life like our worth is up for negotiation. Like we need someone to clap for us in order to stand tall. Like we need someone to love us before we love ourselves. But listen closely. You weren't born to be a reaction. You were born to be a revolution. The moment a woman stops waiting to be chosen and starts choosing herself, she becomes unstoppable. She steps out of survival and into sovereignty. I want you to imagine this. You walk into a room, and before you say a word, people feel something shift. It's not your clothes. It's not your makeup. It's your energy. That energy doesn't come from attention. It doesn't come from likes, comments, or text messages. It comes from one powerful decision to stop negotiating with your own worth. That's when your life begins to change. You stop chasing closure from people who never deserved your heart. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop tying your value to your performance, your productivity, or your past. You begin to realize something radical, that your worth was never about what you've done. It was always about who you are. But let's go deeper. Let's talk about the nervous system. Let's talk about the wiring inside you that keeps you stuck in old cycles. When you've been conditioned since childhood, since heartbreak, since trauma to base your worth on how others treat you, you start to live in reaction mode. You overextend to be accepted. You shrink to be loved. You hustle to be seen. And you don't even realize it because the pattern feels safe. But that safety, it's survival, not sovereignty. Your brain learns to associate approval with safety and rejection with danger. So you bend, you mold, you perform. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system is trying to protect you. And that's where the healing begins. You can't think your way out of that loop. You have to embody your way out. You have to train your mind and body to feel safe in your power, safe in your silence, safe in your no, safe in your standards. Because when a woman finally says, I'm done chasing, I'm done proving, I'm done shrinking, she stops being predictable. She stops being pleasing. She starts being powerful. Let me ask you something, and don't answer quickly, let it land. If you stop trying to prove you're worthy, what would you finally have the energy to become? What would you build, love, protect, or create if you weren't exhausted from trying to be enough for everyone else? The world has been whispering to you that your worth comes from how well you perform. But I'm here to remind you, you are not a performance. You are a presence. And presence doesn't need applause. It doesn't wait for permission. It walks in the room and belongs simply because it breathes. Now listen carefully. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about ego. It's about coherence. It's about getting your mind, your heart, your body, and your energy to agree on one powerful truth. I don't owe anyone my shrinking just to make them comfortable. You were never meant to dilute your magic. You were never meant to lower your frequency. You were never meant to forget your crown just because someone else couldn't carry theirs. The moment you decide to root your worth internally, to anchor it in your values, your truth, your divine design, you stop walking into rooms hoping to be seen and start walking into rooms that were waiting for your presence all along. That's queen energy. Not loud, not arrogant, just real, just radiant, just rooted. 200 and... So now I want to leave you with a question. Are you living like your worth is negotiable or like it's non-negotiable? Because every time you choose silence over begging, every time you walk away from chaos to protect your peace, every time you stand in your truth instead of chasing approval, you are answering that question. So if this spoke to you, don't keep it inside. Leave a comment below. Tell me, what are you letting go of now that you remember who you are? ATA. Like this video if it reminded you of your power, and subscribe because we're just getting started. Thank you for being part of this journey. This isn't just a video, this is a mirror. And what you see in it is the queen you've always been. Most women don't realize this. They're not fighting the world. They're fighting the voice in their head. That whisper that says, you're too much. You're not ready. You're probably going to fail. Self-doubt isn't just a thought. It's a habit. It's a loop, a well-rehearsed script passed down from pain, from parents, from partners, from the parts of yourself that were taught to survive by staying small. But here's what they never told you. You don't negotiate with self-doubt. You outgrow it. You don't sit at the table with it and ask for approval. You rise from the table and build your own. Because self-doubt isn't an enemy you need to fight. It's a pattern you need to interrupt. Let's break this down. Your brain is not fixed. It's not locked into the same identity forever. It's a living system designed to be rewired. That's called neuroplasticity. The same way your mind was trained to fear rejection, comparison, failure, it can be trained to respond with confidence, clarity, and peace. But here's the catch. You don't rewire your brain by reading quotes. You rewire it by becoming the version of you who no longer trades her power for temporary validation. And that happens through repetition, not reaction. You can't just know you're worthy. You have to walk like you are, speak like you are, decide like you are. Self-worth isn't a declaration. It's a daily demonstration. So let me ask you, who are you practicing being? Are you practicing anxiety by rehearsing every possible rejection? Are you practicing insecurity by apologizing for your truth? Are you practicing doubt by second-guessing your power? Because every time you do, you're reinforcing the version of you that thinks she needs permission to shine. But the woman you're becoming, she doesn't ask for access. She is the access point. To wisdom, to peace, to power. She doesn't react to disrespect because her energy is too valuable to be moved by noise. She doesn't explain her boundaries because she understands that those who truly see her won't need a PowerPoint to respect her standards. She's not performing for attention. She's embodying alignment. Now, here's something neuroscience confirms. Your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination if the emotion is strong enough, which means every time you visualize yourself walking with confidence, choosing yourself, setting a boundary with grace, saying no without guilt, showing up even when it's hard, you are carving a new path in your brain. You are training your nervous system to feel safe in power, not just safety in people-pleasing. This is not fake it till you make it. This is feel it until you become it. You don't wait to become confident. You act as if you embody the energy of the woman you're becoming until your nervous system stops resisting it and starts recognizing it as home. Here's the pattern I want you to break today. Stop abandoning yourself to be understood. You don't owe explanations to people who lack the emotional depth to meet you where you are. Let them call you cold. Let them say you've changed. Let them misunderstand your silence. Because self-respect is louder than words. And the more you stop defending your value, the more you begin defining it. You stop seeking closure in conversations that only reopen your wounds. You stop tying your worth to being chosen, complimented, or pursued. You stop editing your voice just to be palatable. You don't need to be digestible. You need to be undeniable. And that starts the moment you stop negotiating with your old self. There's a ritual I give to women in my workshops, and I want to give it to you now. It's simple, but powerful. Every morning, before the world touches you, before you pick up your phone, your worries, or your obligations, I want you to meet her. The woman you're becoming, close your eyes, see her, Feel her energy. Hear the way she speaks. Watch how she walks. How does she handle conflict? How does she handle silence? How does she respond to disrespect or compliments? What does her face look like when she knows she's enough, regardless of what anyone else thinks? Now breathe into that version of you. Feel her power in your chest, her clarity in your gut, her peace in your shoulders. Now open your eyes, and for the rest of the day, make decisions from her. Speak from her. Choose like her. Not someday, today, because that's how you become her. By acting like she's already you, you are not here to keep proving you belong. You are here to remember that you already do. And from that remembrance, you will move different. You'll find yourself drawn to peace instead of drama. You'll stop needing validation to feel alive. You'll start showing up for yourself the way you always hoped someone else would. You'll see that all along. It wasn't that you weren't worthy. It's that you were looking for your crown in the wrong places. The mirror will become your reminder, not the mirror on the wall. The mirror in your mind, the one that reflects your energy, your identity, your belief system. You want to stop negotiating with self-doubt? Then stop giving it the mic. Stop letting it narrate your mornings, your meetings, your moments of power. Replace the script. Rewire the signal. Reclaim the frequency. You are not a question mark. You are a statement, a sentence that ends with certainty. And when you embody that, you don't just become confident, you become free. Let me say something that might hit you in the chest. You are not your past, but you are still living like you are. You're wearing the name tags that pain gave you, still replaying the moments that broke you, still walking like your crown depends on someone else's memory of your worst day. And that's not your fault, but it is your responsibility now. Because identity isn't who you've been. It's who you practice being when no one is watching. And the problem is, most of us are rehearsing who we were, not who we're becoming. Let's talk about identity alchemy. Alchemy was the ancient art of turning base metals into gold. But what if the real alchemy was never about metal? What if it was about turning pain into power, fear into clarity, and your old self into your highest self? That's identity alchemy. And it doesn't happen by accident. It begins with one question that most people never slow down long enough to ask. Who am I becoming? Not who do I want to be someday? Not who was I before they broke me? But right now, in this moment, who am I actively becoming through my thoughts, my habits, my emotions, and my energy? Here's the thing most people miss. You can't become someone new with the emotions of who you used to be. You can't access your future if your nervous system is still addicted to the survival habits of your past. Think about it. If your identity is built on fear, then your actions will echo that fear. Your decisions will reflect that fear, and your energy will reinforce that fear. And then you'll say, see, nothing ever changes. But it's not life that hasn't changed. It's the identity that hasn't evolved. I want to invite you into a shift. Imagine this. There's a version of you in the quantum field. She already exists, not as fantasy, but as frequency. She walks with intention. She speaks with self-trust. She makes decisions from wisdom, not wounds. She's not confused about her worth. She's anchored in it. Your job is not to chase her. It's to become her. And the way you become her is by aligning your internal world, your thoughts, your habits, your emotional state with her energy. That's what I call living from the vision, not from the version. The old version of you, she lived in survival. She learned to protect, to please, to perform. But the new version, she's not here to survive. She's here to expand. And expansion means discomfort. It means feeling unfamiliar emotions. It means walking into rooms where your old habits don't belong anymore. So let me ask you, what emotional state are you rehearsing every day? Anxiety, doubt, overthinking, shame, imposter syndrome? Because every emotion you rehearse, you wire into your identity. You can't create a life of peace with a mind addicted to chaos. You can't build a future rooted in trust while feeding your fear every morning. You can't attract new love while carrying the emotional residue of people who didn't value you. This is not about pretending. It's about pruning. Your brain is capable of letting go of any pattern that no longer serves your expansion, but only when you give it permission. And how do you give it permission? By making a different choice consistently. Let me give you something practical. Every time you notice yourself slipping into your old identity, the one that chases, doubts, apologizes for shining, I want you to say this phrase out loud. That's who I used to be. She doesn't live here anymore. Then pause. Breathe. Shift. That one sentence will do more than inspire you. It will interrupt the neural pattern. You're telling your body, your subconscious, we're not going back there. We've upgraded, because identity is like software. The more outdated the code, the more glitches you'll experience in your reality. But the moment you update the code, the system starts to run differently, cleaner, stronger, aligned. Here's the truth no one wants to face. You don't need more information. You need more integration. You already know you're worthy. You already know they weren't your mirror. You already know your future self is waiting. The only thing left to do is live like it's true. Because when your actions contradict your identity, you stay stuck in a loop of emotional confusion. But when your thoughts, emotions, and choices begin to harmonize, you begin to experience what we call identity coherence. That's when your past can no longer haunt your present. That's when your future begins to respond to your energy. And that's when people start saying things like, something's different about you, but they can't explain it. Because it's not surface level, it's not an aesthetic, it's not louder, it's deeper. You're not just doing things differently, you're being someone new. That's identity alchemy. Let me leave you with this. You are not bound to the identity that pain gave you. You don't have to be the version of you that broke down just to be loved. You don't have to keep playing the role of the one who always holds it all together while dying inside. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to grow into a version of you that no one has met yet, including yourself. And when that version shows up, she will walk with a peace that doesn't need to be explained. She will speak from a heart that's no longer guarded by trauma. She will choose from a place of vision, not fear. That's not a dream. That's the real you. The you that always existed under the rubble of who you were taught to be. And now, it's time for her to rise. Let's get honest. Too many women are building their lives in reaction to pain, to betrayal, to being overlooked, to being underestimated. And that reactive life, it feels like survival because you're not living your story, you're editing someone else's version of you. But let me say this loud and clear. You were not born to react. You were born to create, to shape, to design, to take the pen back and write your own damn chapters. You weren't meant to sit on the sidelines waiting for closure, permission, or clarity. You were meant to step into the arena of your life and build from your inner truth, not your outer triggers. When you live in reaction, you let the past tell your nervous system what's safe. You give your power to circumstances. You let other people's behavior determine your emotional weather. Someone praises you, you're flying. Someone ghosts you, you're spiraling. Someone criticizes you, your whole day collapses. That's not peace. That's emotional slavery. You become a puppet to conditions you can't control. But listen, your nervous system is not the enemy. It's just been programmed to prioritize protection over purpose. Every time something reminded you of rejection, abandonment, or failure, it stored that data. It created a reaction, a defense. Not because you're weak, but because your system was trying to keep you alive. But now you're not in danger. You're not that little girl anymore. You're not in that toxic relationship. You're in a new season, but still carrying old survival codes. And the only way to step into creation mode is to rewrite those codes. Here's what creation feels like. It's not loud. It's not chaotic. It's not grasping. It's rooted. It's clear. It's intentional. When you create your life from the inside out, you stop asking, what are they going to think of me? And you start asking, what do I want to feel aligned with? You stop chasing validation and start chasing vision. You stop being emotionally hijacked by temporary triggers and start becoming the architect of permanent transformation. Here's the shift. Reaction is about the past. Creation is about the future. When you react, you're simply reliving emotional patterns. When you create, you're consciously designing new ones. The problem is, most people don't slow down long enough to realize they're living in loops. They call it being busy. They call it life happening. But it's not life. It's a loop. Wake up, scroll, compare, work, please, overextend, getrigger, react, shut down, repeat. Sound familiar? That's not alignment. That's autopilot. Here's what I want you to start practicing today. The pause, the sacred pause between stimulus and response. Because in that space lies your power. That's the space where you choose, am I going to act like who I've been? Or am I going to act like who I'm becoming? One reaction can pull you back into an old version of yourself. One conscious choice can launch you into a new one. That's how queens move. Not impulsively, not emotionally hijacked, not trying to control everyone else's behavior. They control their energy, their response, their presence. That's real power. Let's talk neuroscience for a second. Your brain doesn't prioritize what's right. It prioritizes what's familiar. So if you've spent years reacting in fear, reacting in defensiveness, reacting by shrinking, that's what your brain thinks is safe. It will pull you back into that behavior, even if it makes you miserable, just because it's familiar. So don't judge yourself for your reactions. Interrupt them. When you catch yourself spiraling, pausing won't feel natural at first. That's okay. Do it anyway. Say to yourself, this reaction is not who I am. It's who I've been trained to be. But I get to choose a new pattern now. That's the kind of moment that rewires everything. You're not here to be emotionally dragged by every text message. You're not here to shrink because of silence. You're not here to hand your worth to people who don't even know themselves. You're here to create, to become the source of your peace, to hold space for your future self, even when your old self screams for safety. And that doesn't mean pretending. It doesn't mean bypassing emotions. It means you learn to feel without becoming, to observe without over-identifying, to witness without collapsing. That's what emotional power feels like. So many of us were taught that reacting quickly makes us strong, but actually it makes us predictable. And predictable people can be controlled, but the woman who can pause, breathe, and choose her response with clarity, she is dangerous in the most beautiful way. She's no longer trying to prove anything. She's no longer feeding chaos with more chaos. She's no longer a mirror for dysfunction. She's a mirror for grounded, non-reactive, sovereign presence. I want to leave you with this visual. Imagine your future self. She's standing at a fork in the road. On one path, she reacts to life. She's triggered often. She's exhausted from defending, explaining, fixing. On the other path, she creates her energy. She builds her responses. She attracts clarity, peace, and purpose. And the difference between those two paths, one moment of awareness, one conscious pose, one breath. That's the invitation today. To stop letting your past dictate your response. To stop making decisions from a nervous system addicted to chaos. To start honoring the woman you're becoming, even if the world around you hasn't caught up yet. You're not just here to respond to life. You're here to redefine it. That starts the moment you stop reacting and start creating. Let's make this clear. If you don't have boundaries, you don't have peace. If you don't have boundaries, you don't have clarity. And if you don't have boundaries, you don't truly have self-respect. because a boundary isn't a punishment. It's not a wall. It's not a reaction. It's a standard. It's a declaration. It's you saying, this is how I value myself, and this is the energy I allow in my life. A boundary is the invisible line where your healing ends and someone else's chaos begins. Most people think boundaries are selfish. That saying no is rude. That walking away is dramatic. But that's because they were raised to believe love means access. Even if that access drains you, confuses you, or disrespects you, let me tell you what love really means. Love has boundaries. Worth enforces them, and peace is what grows when you honor both. Every time you say yes to something that violates your peace, every time you stay quiet when your soul screams, this isn't right, every time you give someone another chance when they've already shown you their pattern, you're not keeping the peace. You're abandoning yourself. And abandonment disguised as kindness will eat away at your identity. Because here's the truth, and it may sting, you are training people how to treat you. Every time you tolerate disrespect, every time you minimize your needs, every time you dismiss your intuition just to keep the vibe good, you are teaching your nervous system that your voice doesn't matter. And eventually, it believes you. Let's flip the script. What if boundaries aren't a rejection of others, but a radical act of self-remembrance? What if every time you said no with conviction, you are actually saying yes to your highest self? Because the woman you're becoming, she doesn't explain her standards. She doesn't negotiate with guilt. She doesn't water herself down for proximity or validation. She knows that her energy is her most sacred currency, and not everyone gets a discount. I want you to hear this. A queen doesn't beg for respect. She doesn't argue for worth. She doesn't need to raise her voice because her silence speaks volumes. And her boundaries, they are not ultimatums. They are invitations. An invitation to rise, to meet her where she stands, to honor the level of energy she operates in. If someone can't meet you there, they're not bad. They're just not for you. Here's what's happening in your brain when you set a boundary. For many women, setting boundaries feels unsafe. Why? Because historically, it led to backlash, rejection, abandonment. So now, even when your logical mind knows you should walk away, your nervous system is screaming, stay, be quiet, don't rock the boat. That's trauma memory. That's survival instinct, not truth. Every time you set a boundary, even a small one, you send a message to your subconscious. It is safe to protect myself. And that message, repeated again and again, rewires your nervous system, heals your attachment wounds, rebuilds your self-trust. But this takes practice, because setting boundaries isn't just about saying no. It's about holding the line when it's uncomfortable. It's about choosing your peace over their confusion. It's about honoring your intuition over their expectations. It's about walking away not with bitterness, but with clarity, because your clarity will always offend someone who benefits from your confusion. But you're not here to stay confused for comfort. You're here to rise. I want you to picture this. You have a throne. You have a crown. And every time you lower your standard to make someone else feel better, you're stepping down, not because you're not worthy, but because you forgot that you're not here to be accessible to everyone, forgot that your time, your body, your emotional bandwidth is sacred real estate, forgot that you don't need to be needed to be valuable. But now you remember that you are not here to be available to everyone. You are here to be aligned with those who understand the frequency of your worth. Let me give you something practical. The next time someone crosses a boundary, don't justify, don't over-explain, don't apologize for having a standard. Instead, try this. That doesn't work for me. That's it. Not, I'm so sorry, I just really need space and I don't want to seem mean. Number, just, that doesn't work for me. And if they ask why, you don't do a PowerPoint presentation. Your peace is reason enough. Every time you honor your boundaries, you calibrate your life to your highest self. The people who love you, they'll rise to meet you. they'll adjust, they'll grow. The people who are only attached to your access, they'll leave. Either way, you win because you are no longer building your life around fear of loss. You are building it around the truth of who you are. A boundary is not a wall that keeps people out. It's a mirror that shows them exactly where they stand. So the question is no longer, how do I keep everyone happy? It's, who am I when I stop abandoning myself? And the answer to that question is the version of you the world has been waiting for. Not the agreeable version, not the shrinking version, not the version addicted to being liked, but the version anchored in truth, protected by standards, and radiant with non-negotiable peace. Boundaries are how you teach the universe that you're ready to live in alignment, not chaos, not confusion, not conditional love, but clarity. And from that place, you no longer need to force anything. You attract what was meant for the version of you that finally remembered her worth. Let me tell you something. Most people never hear growing up. Your peace is a skill. Your calm is a practice. And your power is not in your volume, it's in your regulation. We've been taught to chase control over situations, control over people, control over outcomes. But the only real control, the only sustainable power is the ability to control yourself, your emotions, your reactions, your energy. And all of that starts in one place. Your nervous system, most people don't know this, but your nervous system is like a GPS for your identity. It holds memory. It holds trauma. It holds belief systems you never chose but inherited through experience. And unless you rewire it, you will keep reacting to the present with emotions from the past. That's why someone not texting you back triggers anxiety that makes no logical sense. That's why a minor disagreement feels like abandonment. That's why silence feels unsafe, even when nothing is wrong. It's not the situation. It's the stored story in your nervous system that interprets the moment. You're not reacting to now. You're reliving a then. But here's the good news. The nervous system is not fixed. It's adaptable. It can be rewired. It wants to be rewired. But it doesn't change just because you read a quote or repeat an affirmation. It changes when you consistently show it new patterns and make those patterns feel safe. Let's break that down. When you've lived most of your life in survival, you get addicted to certain emotional states. Anxiety becomes normal. Overthinking feels productive. Drama feels like home. Chaos feels alive. And peace feels unfamiliar and therefore unsafe. This is why many people sabotage calm, not because they don't want it, but because their nervous system has never learned how to feel safe in it. And that's the real healing. Not just talking about your past, but teaching your body to trust the present. Here's what nervous system mastery really looks like. It's not that you never get triggered. It's that you don't stay there. You learn to feel your emotions, but not be ruled by them. You pause when your instincts scream to lash out. You breathe when your body wants to shut down. You ground yourself when anxiety tries to hijack your day. Because maturity isn't suppressing your feelings. It's not being strong by pretending you're fine. It's the integrity to sit with what you feel and still choose who you want to be. I want you to understand this. You were not designed to be stuck in fight or flight every day. You were not meant to wake up stressed, scroll through chaos, people please your way into exhaustion, and call that a life. That's survival. That's reactivity. That's the nervous system saying, we've been here before and we're bracing for pain. But your highest self, she doesn't live in survival. She lives in vision. In response, not reaction. In presence, not panic. And the only way to reach her, to become her, is to regulate. Let's talk about magnetic energy. You felt it. That person who walks into the room and doesn't have to say a word, and yet everyone feels their presence. That kind of energy, it's not created through charisma. It's not about confidence in the traditional sense. It's the result of internal coherence. Their mind, their heart, and their nervous system are not at war. They're in alignment. And people feel that they trust that. They are drawn to that because the world is full of noise. But presence is rare, and presence comes from regulation. So, how do you start? You don't need a complete life makeover. You need a few intentional practices repeated consistently. Try this. Morning check-in. Before the world gets your energy, you get your energy. Before the scroll, before the emails, before the chaos, sit, breathe, ask, what emotional state do I choose to live in today? Not what you feel by default. What you choose by design. Name it to tame it. Throughout the day, if you feel triggered, pause and label it. This is fear. This is anger. This is shame. When you name the emotion, you give it less power. You move from being the feeling to observing it. Close the loop. If you're holding tension in your body, move it. Walk, stretch, shake, breathe. Release the cortisol. Complete the stress cycle. Let your body know the danger is over. You're safe now. These aren't hacks. They're how you remind your body that it's no longer in the battlefield. Because the truth is, your emotional baseline is what the universe responds to. You can journal all day. You can visualize. You can speak affirmations in the mirror. But if your nervous system is dysregulated, your energy will keep pulling in experiences that match your inner chaos. You won't attract from what you want. You'll attract from what you are. And when who you are is grounded, regulated, anchored, you become magnetic without effort. Let's be real. You're not exhausted because of your schedule. You're exhausted because of how often you abandon your peace, how often you perform for acceptance, how often you hold your breath around people who can't meet you at your frequency. But you don't have to live like that anymore. You get to breathe again. You get to exhale. You get to choose calm, not because life is calm, but because you become the stillness in the storm. You become the clarity in the confusion. You become the anchor, not the emotional chaos. You don't become powerful by being louder. You become powerful by becoming still enough to feel what's real. And when you do, something shifts. You stop spiraling. You stop chasing. You stop managing other people's feelings just to feel okay. You start owning your energy. You start honoring your nervous system. You start embodying the emotional integrity that changes your entire frequency. That's when you no longer force your future. You attract it. You align with it. You match it because you've stopped reacting to life and you've started regulating who you are becoming. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes she's been performing instead of embodying, performing confidence, performing joy, performing boundaries, performing worth. It's not that she wasn't strong. It's not that she didn't try. She did. But the energy behind it was rooted in fear, fear of not being enough, fear of being too much, fear of being misunderstood, unloved, unseen. And fear is a shaky foundation to build a life on because anything you perform, you can forget. But what you embody becomes who you are. This is the shift from performance to presence, from proving to knowing, from seeking applause to standing in alignment. And here's the truth. Most people don't know the difference. They confuse loudness with leadership. They confuse aesthetic with authenticity. They confuse attention with attraction. But a queen, she doesn't move for attention. She moves with intention. She doesn't walk into the room and beg for the spotlight. She is the light, whether anyone notices or not. Let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with it. Are you showing up to be validated? Or are you showing up because you're already valuable? Because the woman who still performs her worth will always be exhausted. She's constantly calculating, do they like me? Did I say too much? Did I look good enough? But the woman who has embodied her identity, she's not calculating, she's creating. Her energy is clean. Her intention is pure. Her presence is grounded. That's the frequency of a queen. Now, I want to give you a metaphor. Performance is like stage makeup. It's thick, it's dramatic, it's curated for the spotlight. But embodiment is like natural light. It's soft, it's clear, it reveals the truth. When you're performing, you need the world to clap. When you're embodying, you don't even need them to look because you're not here to impress. You're here to express. You're not chasing energy. You are the source of it. So how do we make this shift from performance to embodiment? It begins with one decision. You stop living like your value is up for debate. You stop asking rooms for permission to be who you already are. You stop tailoring yourself to fit into conversations that aren't aligned with your character. You start dressing for the identity you're stepping into, not the approval you used to crave. You start speaking from the version of you that's rooted in self-trust, not fear. You start moving like your energy is sacred because it island, and slowly you stop performing the role and start becoming the author. Here's what embodiment feels like. You say no without guilt. You rest without justifying. You take up space without apologizing. You walk away without collapsing. You choose silence, not as avoidance, but as power. You no longer tolerate people who make your peace feel like a performance because you're no longer filtering yourself to keep others comfortable. You're choosing discomfort for the sake of authenticity. And that is liberation. Let's talk energy. A queen's energy is not reactive. It's not over-explaining. It's not chaotic. It's not constantly needing to be understood. Her frequency is consistency. Her presence is intention. Her power is discernment. She knows what to respond to. She knows what to let go. She knows what is hers and what is a projection. And that discernment, it didn't come from ease. It came from experience, from breaking cycles, from choosing healing when revenge would have been easier, from choosing clarity when chaos was familiar. That's the kind of strength you don't post about. It's the kind that lives in your nervous system. Quiet, rooted, undeniable. So many women are still trying to be liked by people who don't even know how to love themselves. They shrink, they soften, they smile through discomfort. But the woman who embodies her worth, she knows she's not for everyone. And she doesn't mind being misunderstood by those who never took the time to understand themselves. She's not here to be chosen. She's here to choose her peace, her path, her purpose. That's what Embodiment Island. Here's the reframe I want you to hold on to. You're not becoming someone new. You're returning to who you were before the world taught you to doubt her. This version of you, the one who feels grounded, the one who moves with clarity, the one who doesn't flinch when things get hard, she's not a fantasy. She's not an influencer. She's not someone you follow. She's you minus the fear, minus the mask, minus the need to perform. And when you start living in that frequency, you notice something strange. The world responds differently. People respect you more, not because you demanded it, but because you've stopped tolerating anything less. Opportunities feel aligned, not because you chased them, but because you became the version of yourself that attracts them. Relationships become clearer, not because everyone else changed, but because you stop shape-shifting to make them comfortable. That's what embodiment does. It clarifies your environment because you've become too aligned to entertain anything that disrupts your peace. So today, I want you to leave the performance behind, drop the script, burn the mask. Walk away from the audience that's been clapping for a version of you that doesn't even exist anymore. And in its place, choose presence. Choose to wake up and breathe into the energy of the woman you are becoming. Let that version of you speak. Let her lead. Let her anchor your decisions. Because when you show up as her, you don't just impress the world, you inspire it. And more importantly, you free yourself, not by becoming louder, not by doing more, but by remembering you are already everything you were looking for. And now you live like it.